At this point, it started getting really, really intense. I just started hearing all kinds of beeping and noises, you know, all the machinery inside the ambulance. They're putting me on these monitors, things like that. What I remember, though, is that I began to get really, really tired. And I kept telling them, you know, I need to go to sleep, I'm tired. And they're like, no, don't go to sleep, don't go to sleep. And, you know, I was losing so much blood that if I went to sleep, that would mean I'm actually dying. I remember things started getting more and more quiet, and actually it felt like I just fell asleep and things just went black. My name is Jed Chappell, and here's the story of my miracle. "15 years ago, I got a call from some friends of mine, and they said, man, let's go do this today. Let's go hit some houses, break into some stuff, find a bunch of things that we can pull together and take to a pawn shop. We want to make some money." You know, at that time, I was really up to doing anything that was illegal, so I was all in. They come to my house, they pick me up. We go from house to house all day long, kicking in doors, taking people's stuff, taking it to the pawn shop. You know, our plan originally was if anybody was home, we'd tie them up. And I had a gun on me because I always carried a lot of money on me. At the time, I was actually selling drugs, so I carried a gun on me. So their idea was we'll tie them up and we'll hold them hostage, we'll take everything they have. Thankfully, though, nobody was ever home. So we go through from house to house all day long, kicking in these doors, taking people's stuff, and really thinking, you know, it was really an adrenaline rush that we had that day, kicking in these doors to these houses. But it led us to this street that I'm on right now, that really, this moment that occurred changed my entire life. It was the last house of that afternoon. Something inside me told me something was about to go real wrong. We walk up to the door of this house, start kicking in the door, but it was one of those big doors where it had thinner slats on either side of it. So we squeeze in, we're running around the house, taking everything that was available to take. And we look out the window. We see that there's a police car in the driveway. So immediately we panic. We start running around the house, looking for ways of escape. The front and back door were both keyed deadbolt locks. All the windows in the house were this small steel-framed window pane, so we couldn't get out of the house. We were literally trapped. We broke out the window, fell on the ground, and took off running. And we actually started running down this area right here through these yards. How in the world did I get here? And as we were running, I know that I was just amped with adrenaline. I'm in the front, and I guess who has the gun? Me, because it was mine, obviously. I had it in my hand, out, running through the yards. As I'm running, I see this car start pulling in my direction. A man jumped out of the car. He pulled a gun and was aiming at me from behind the car. Well, I had the gun in my hand, and my first wired reaction was to raise my gun up at him and start running towards him. And I said, don't move or I'll shoot. And the next thing I remember was a loud bang and a large cloud of smoke. When the ambulance picked me up, man, it was crazy because blood's going everywhere. Every time my heart beats, blood is spewing all over my chest, my face, everything. I remember getting really, really cold. And when they put me in the ambulance, it was pretty chaotic. There was beeping noises, a lot of conversations going on around me. A guy was pressing down on my chest, trying to stop the bleeding. And apparently, I had no heartbeat for 20 seconds. At that point, I heard noise again all of a sudden. It was like I was revived instantly. And from that point, I was carted from the ambulance into Baptist Medical Center. They took me to the preparation room for preparing me for surgery, cut off all my clothes, took me into an elevator up to whatever floor that was and operated on me immediately. I remember blacking out at that point and then waking up, and the next place that I was in ICU, handcuffed to a bed. And I remember thinking to myself, how did I get here? I mean, what in the world? Life completely changed for me in the fraction of a moment through this entire altercation. For about 2 weeks, I stayed in the hospital, and as soon as I was able to sit up in the bed, I was transferred to the city jail. After being in the city jail for about, I guess 4 hours, my brother bonded me out. And so I was out of jail, back on the street at my brother's house, recovering. You think my life would have changed drastically after being shot, which it did, but I continued doing the same things, and I actually spiraled downhill, getting real messed up on drugs and just doing all kinds of crazy stuff for the next 9 months. Well, at the end of that 9 months, I had to go back to court to get sentenced. During that 9-month period when I was out, though, my girlfriend at the time had gotten pregnant. So she was pregnant at the time. I'm in the courtroom 9 months later, being sentenced. She points down to her stomach and says, "I'm in labor." So she was actually in labor in the courtroom the day I was being sentenced. The judge gave me 47 years in prison, and so I was being carried off to prison at the same time my girlfriend at the time was being carried off to have our firstborn son. It was that moment that completely changed my life forever. I realized that I had taken myself out of my son's life by the choices that I had made, and wasn't going to have the opportunity to be his father, it didn't seem like. I go back to the county jail cell, I fall flat on my face, crying and repenting to God, saying, "God, please change me, make me a new man, help me be able to be the father and husband that I need to be for my family." And it was in that moment that everything just shifted for me. I spent close to the next 8 years in prison. Through that whole time, God totally began to mold me and change me and make me into a new man. You know, I had a choice when I went to prison to continue doing the things that I was doing on the streets inside of a prison. But I said, you know what? If I'm going to be a better person for my family, for my son, I got to do some things differently. So I started making positive choices, hanging around positive people, and taking advantage of every program that prison had to offer to help me become a better man. Because of all the positive choices that I had made, I had a lot of good behavior time taken off of my sentence, things like that, and it kind of helped me accelerate through the process of getting out of prison. I was in Taft, Oklahoma, and there was a pastor that used to come into the prison there every week, and he used to talk to all us guys and really encourage us. His name was Brother Bill. He actually told me, he said, "Man, if you want to get connected to a local church, a life-giving church, you need to go to Oklahoma City and connect with Pastor Mark Crow at Victory Church." And he said, "Man, it's a life-giving church, and everything you need will be there to help you be successful when you get out of here." So that's exactly what I did, man. I went to Victory Church. I walked in the doors, and man, when I started listening to the worship, I just fell in love. I knew that was home for me, my home church. I began to volunteer there and just serve and just committed my life to serving God there at the local church at Victory. Completely changed my life. Today, actually, I work there. I'm a pastor on staff at Victory Church. That's just a testimony of how amazing God is and what He wants to do in our lives as we submit to Him. In addition to working there now, that's where I met my wife, actually. My beautiful wife, Julie. We have 4 kids now. I could go on and on about what God has blessed me with. My name is Jed Chappell, and I'm a living miracle.